I have a couple of interesting, we have a few clips that we're just going to put up. We could turn the lights a little bit lower. I think you'll find them interesting. And then we'll answer some questions. I'll ask you some questions because you're so guilty, but forget it. But most importantly, we're going to get back onto the reason we're here, which is the success we're having. Okay? Please, you could put it on. Thank you.
Hey yo, what is up? Reaction video as usual on the new tank, the GSOR 1008. Hope you enjoyed that smiley face I managed to put on the GSOR. You can do that with the decals. Put the teeth in and some googly eyes on the turret. Looks really cute and I like it. Now, as usual, reaction video. This is my first game in the tank, giving you a raw reaction video. Obviously, I did take it out to the training room to test it out, just to see what it feels like. Took it out to the training room once, and this is my first game. We're gonna go through the stats. We're gonna talk about what equipment I use. We're gonna talk about what kind of crew I use, what kind of crew skills I use. And here we are in Karelia South. Now immediately I take 2 shots here and pen both of them. Now obviously in Karelia South, when you're in a tank destroyer, some kind of sniper tank, you want to go into this position at K6 or somewhere around Delta 2, where the Borsig Waffenträger is on our team, and that is the default positions for tank destroyers. Now obviously this is it's being marketed as a tank destroyer, but it is not really 100% tank destroyer. You can play it a bit like a medium tank. Now I did hope that this was going to turn out to be something like a Lorraine 40T, but they did nerf this tank out before they released it, and then they buffed it again, and now we're up to the current stats that you see here. Now what you see me struggling with just now there, trying to shoot the T69 that was poking out in the corner, was me struggling for gun elevation. I don't have gun elevation on this tank. I have 11 degrees amazing gun depression, but I can't elevate my gun more than 10 degrees. 10 degrees. So you see me struggling here, trying to get an angle, see if I can shoot from above the rock with my tank elevated up. It was impossible for me to get the gun pointed up. So I was, this is my first game, so I'm trying to get used to what kind of 10 degrees of gun elevation feels like. It doesn't feel very good at all, actually. So we're gonna go through the stats, but first I wanted to tell you about the equipment and the crew that I use. So let's go through that. I'm running IRM Vents Optics combination. Obviously you want some vision here because you are a tank destroyer. There are other options that you can use, and we'll go through that in a minute. I might swap the vents out for improved aim equipment just to improve my hit ratio a little bit, because this gun, if you didn't notice, it is a little bit derpy. Sometimes you hit your shots, sometimes you don't, sometimes you aim for something else and it flies somewhere else. So it is a little bit of a derpy gun. But the reason why I got the vents on here is because this tank also has very poor power to weight ratio. You can look at the horsepower per ton up there. It is 14.66 power to weight ratio, which means it is very sluggish. The top speed on this tank, supposedly 60 kilometers an hour. You never get to 60 kilometers an hour because of the power to weight ratio that is so low. That is why I got the vents on. Some people prefer the improved aim instead of the vents. This will help you hit your shots with a little bit more accuracy. I made some blind shots there. At the end of the game, I'm going to see that I did hit 2 or 3 of those blind shots, and it added to my total shots made. Again, in this setup, I wanted to sacrifice a little bit of my accuracy, just slightly to get some help with the traverse, the mobility, the agility of this tank with the vents, you know. Of course, with vents, it helps with rotation speed, and rotation speed equals a little bit more agility, rotation of your hull, rotation of your turret slightly faster, and it helps a little bit. Together with the improved rotation mechanics, of course, obviously. Again, I said this tank suffers from agility issue. The speed is not too bad. It's not the fastest tank in the world, but it's not slow. So you can shift, you can change locations, but rotating your hull, it's kind of sluggish. So that's why I went with the vents. Now, another option for equipment is IRM optics and binoculars. So instead of the vents, put on the binocular telescope there, which gives you extra 25% view range when you are stationary. You see me drop that gun there. I was aiming at the lower plate, but it did not pen that VK. Now this, I'm shooting premium shells here. This is very high penetration premium shells, 321 penetration. Even the standard AP shells standard penetration is 226. It's very good. But like I said, this gun is slightly derpy. It'll miss, it'll stray, it'll go to the edges of your dispersion, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But like I said, I can see some players like Skill for LTU running this setup, the IRM binocular telescope and optics. This could be a good option for players who want to mark tanks, who want the assisted damage. The residual damage, spotting damage, you want to call it. I know a player like Skill for LTU does run optics and binocular telescopes on his Hellcat, Super Hellcat, the T-78, those turreted tank destroyers. He does fancy that kind of setup. So I can see a player like him running this kind of setup on his GSOR. But I don't know, man. Watch his Twitch and see what kind of setup he runs. Maybe you can try it. But remember, Skill for LTU is Skill for LTU, and you are you. You play your own style. Set up the tank the way you like to play it. Now let's move on to the crew. The crew that I got on this tank is from my 215B183 tank. This tank takes three crew, which is the commander, gunner, and driver. Only 3 crew. I only have 3.8 skills on my crew. For all my crews, I have the BIA. For my commander, I have situational awareness, which helps with view range. And I put camo on this tank because camo on this tank is amazing. You can get it up to 40%, up to 44% if you decide to run exhaust pipes instead of the vents. You can get it up to 44% with BIA, with food, with camo directive. You can get it 44%, which is really good. Stationary 44%, it's almost like an ELC AMX. Now I'm down here, switched positions, and I'm going under the ledge here. The reason is I want to spot this guy at the back here on top. There is always one guy up here. If you play this map long enough, you know that there are guys up there sniping. What I want to do is provide some proxy spotting, and there you go, proxy spot the guy and he gets taken out. But I am trying to side scrape against the Burrasque. I want to make sure that the Burrasque cannot take any shots on me. I want to climb up the hill and see if I can kill off that Burrasque is my next move. This is 7v7. It's very close. It shouldn't be this close, but it is, and we are down like nearly 2,000, 1,600 hit points, so it's not looking too good for us now. Like I was saying, the crew I have here, not the greatest crew, but 3.8 skills is more than enough for a tank like this. For my gunner, again, I have BIA, I have snapshot, I have camo, and I have repairs. Now, of course, I could get rid of the repairs for my gunner, but it is not 100% trained. I could swap it out to Dead Eye but Deadeye is a perk which only works when it's 100%. So once my repairs get up to 100%, maybe I will retrain the crew and replace the repairs with Deadeye so that I can get critical hits when I land my shots on the enemies. On my driver, I have BIA, Smooth Ride, Camo, and Off-Road. Now, why do I have off-road? Because I thought this tank had terrible agility. Remember, this tank has very low power to weight ratio, which means it doesn't turn very well. But I put on the off-road driving skill. But I think the right skill to have is actually the clutch braking skill, because I noticed that when I drive this tank over rough terrain, water, or thick grass, there isn't a problem. The tank does not slow down a lot. Very slightly it slows down. So I feel like the off-road skill is not very important for the driver, but instead I should retrain and swap out the off-road skill to clutch braking skill. Like I mentioned earlier, the rotation of this tank is pretty slow. Turning this tank around, now you can see me doing here, turning the tank is really slow. That is because the horsepower to ton per ton or power to weight ratio is very low, only 14.66. Even with BIA, with food, everything loaded up, you only get it up to about 16 point something or 17 horsepower per ton, which is really low, which makes this tank not very agile. The speed is okay. I don't mind not reaching the top speed because you still can shift around, you still can move with relatively good speed. But if you can't turn and rotate your tank, it's very hard to be an aggressive player. When you are an aggressive player, you want agility in your tank so you can turn your tank, so you can shift your hull position, so you can rotate quickly. So I think the best skill for me on this tank is to replace that off-road for the driver and switch it out to clutch braking. So that would be my ideal crew for this tank. Now, if you were looking at the stats on the left side, you can see that this tank was actually very strong when it first was suggested as a super test tank. Then they decided to nerf it down, and then just before they released the tank, they buffed it back up again. The only thing they didn't return back to its original stats was the reload. 45 seconds reload time for a 4-clip tank is a very long time, so you need to make sure every shot counts. Now, with all the skills that I have, with food, you can get the reload down time to 40 seconds. So 40 seconds, 320 damage, 4 shells. So that's 1280 damage. Is that right? 1280 damage, intra-clip, 2 seconds. Penetration is really high, 226 on standard AP shells and 321 on premium shells. Now, I've already tested this on the training rooms. You can pen the turret face of a Super Conqueror tier 10. Of course, you're not going to pen every angle, but there is like a 50-50 chance in my testings anyway that you can penetrate with premium shells on a Super Conqueror turret face right next to the mantlet where you see that, you know, little gaps. You can actually pen it there for 320 damage with the 321 APCR penetration as well. Premium shells APCR means you have 1411 meters per second shell velocity. It's like a laser. Even the standard shells, AP 1066 meters per second premium shell, standard AP shells, the speed is really good. The aim time 2.21 seconds. If you have all the skills, you get it down to about 2 seconds of aim time. Dispersion 0.33. Again, as soon as you chuck food in, it becomes 0.31. And then if you have vents, BIA, blah blah blah, you get it down to about 0.30. If you decide to use improved aim instead of the vents, you can get this down to 0.29 or even 0.28. So it's pretty good. Now what is really terrible, the really terrible part about this gun, I've already mentioned the first part, which was the agility, not very good. Power to weight ratio, not very good. The shooting on the move is absolutely horrendous. The moving dispersion is 0.29. If you compare it with a Lorraine is 0.19, and 0.19 on the Lorraine shooting on the move is absolutely terrible. This thing, it will not hit anything if you try to shoot on the move. It's a very hard. So I don't recommend you try to shoot on the move. You really need to come to a complete stop and at least try to let your gun aim properly before you pull that trigger. But this is the end of the game. 15 minutes, it turned out being a draw. Yes, I could have played this a little bit better. I could have flanked or something, but this is the best I could do. 2.9 damage, 2.9k damage, but with that blind shots, I hit maybe 2 shots. Ended up being 3.6k damage for my first game, even though it was a loss, and I'll take it. I just wanted to show you guys and talk to you about this tank and show you my initial reactions on this tank. What do you think? Are you gonna get the boxes to get this tank? Because obviously this is a Christmas loot box tank together with the Bisonte. Come back for the Bisonte tomorrow. That's when I will do my reaction video for that tank. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.